I am so excited to have Dr. David Yudis here with us today. And Dr. David is literally a creator of immersive experiences that take people from place A to place B while elevating their magic. And why I love David is that he combines an immense mental power with a huge heart and with a wonderful experience from the world of Walt Disney and bringing it to top level executives and human beings. So, welcome, David.
Tatiana, thank you so much. We were just in the green room. I'm wearing my green sweater. We were just in the green room getting ready. Do I still need to borrow your brush? Is my hair still okay, Tatiana?
Yes, exactly. Your hair is a little bit messed up, my.
Hey, listen, today, I used to say long ago, I used to have my spiky hair 30 years ago, and today I'm just glad to still have hair. This is real hair. So thank you for that, Tatiana.
Wow.
Hey, you know why I love you, Tatiana? I
Oh,
love you because you are a real human. And what do I mean by real human? You are one of the smartest people I know because you have multiple intelligences and you use them. I know you from your corporate world and your corporate intelligence and your IQ, if you will, but you are a deep, feeling, connected person. And it's one thing to have the conversation with you. Here we are in the studio, if you will. But I know you more from having a conversation when you're out in the world, specifically out in nature, like in the woods. And that's where you're most real.
oh my gosh, David. Thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
have you have the gift of seeing people.
Thank you for having me here, Tatiana.
Oh, so fun. And this is a conversation about intensity,
It
right?
is.
And you must have creating intense experiences.
I like to think that I do, and I would think if you polled some of my clients, they would absolutely say that. I'll jump on one thing you started with there. Thank you for the introduction. I think we all are moving at any point from point A to point B. I think some of the immersive creative experiences that I look to create are moving someone from point A, and to use some terminology from one of my mentors, to point A prime. A prime is above B. What is A prime? A prime is a quest. And going on a quest is like being on a journey. And that's what I like to think that I'm doing with my clientele.
Wow. And I love that you bring the mathematical explanation to this journey, right? And that's like, as I understand it, it's creating the experiences where people can feel what it is like to be in their own intense energy and intense energy of others, so that they can calibrate it for the real life.
Completely. Can I tell you, Tatiana, the first time I think I realized what intensity is, or that I actually, like, I have an affinity towards it, that I like it. So about that time that I had that spiky hair 30 some years ago, I was in a band. And in the band, I remember writing a song about intensity. And it was the first time I sort of looked at that, because I felt like I was an intense person, and I felt like I put myself in intense situations. And just to shortline the story, the song was about, I took the word and the idea of intensity and I framed it as intense city. And I felt like there's a place we go to when we get into such situations, that in this song, I called it the intense city. But I think that's how I've thought about it for many years. Intensity is this state of being or way of being, and it's a place. It can come to us, we can go to it, or we can find ourselves suddenly surrounded by it. And the question, I think, is what do we do when we're in that place?
Oh my gosh, David, I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
love that
cool.
you wrote a song of it. Yes, intense city, exactly. We can go there we can it can come to us, yes. And do you know what? I've been also reflecting how this intensity starts for different people in different places. Do you know, I'm
Yes,
thinking about kind of like we all exist in four worlds, right? Emotional, our feelings, mental, thinking, obviously physical, it's like doing, right? And energetic, it's being. And I believe that some of us might be more prone to go to this intensity more in one of the worlds. Like, for example, for me, it would be more in emotional world, you know?
I do. For you, I do.
So it's all like so deep, right? And and I probably for a long time I haven't recognized that it was an emotional world because the mental world was overriding it, right? So I'm curious, where do you go in your intensity? Like, what's your default world?
If I think about the worlds as you've created them, I'm actually thinking to those early experiences when I first was writing about it a bit. I don't think I knew. All I
Mm,
knew was the feelings that I had, the thoughts that came to me, the way my body would get when I was in certain spaces. I knew I could tell you when I was in intensity. I could
mhm,
tell you when I was going towards it. I don't know if I go to one specific world versus another.
mhm, mhm,
I think I play in all of them.
mhm, mhm. So what happens? You said you know the feeling when you
I
go.
do.
So what happens to you?
Well,
What's the
what I think is interesting is this. I don't know if it's a second, whatever it is. There's an interval, a time gap, a space. It could be infinitesimally small, or maybe perhaps it's very large. But there's a way I am, like in this moment. I'm feeling good, Tatiana. I'm feeling balanced. I'm feeling calm, but also excited. There's a feeling of, rise within me. But in the next moment, we could bring up a subject or talk about something, and suddenly I could feel the rush of blood come through me, right? That would be physical then. And I would feel I'm suddenly in intensity. Or it could be mental. And I find myself suddenly, thinking about problems of the universe and what they mean and how they apply to us, or big questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What should I be doing? Or
Mhm,
making a decision. Or they could be emotional. I'm struggling with some feeling I have that feels uncomfortable, and I want to move from it, or I want to do something with it. That's
mhm.
emotional. Of course, emotion could also be great. I'm feeling absolute elation and joy. And maybe I want to stay in this state for as long as I can. That's how I think about it.
Wow, I love that, and I love that you can pinpoint this moment. So because what you're describing is a access to important energy, right?
It
And
is totally.
right, and that energy is actually very creative. So it's like I feel passion, I feel focus.
Completely. I think that comes totally, it's interesting. I think that comes totally from inside. I'm working on a book right now, Tatiana, and so I've been doing some writing. And in my writing, I've been looking at myself as well as I'm looking at some examples and talking about some of this to a degree intensity. And I think what's interesting is what happens when we're in that state. So I mentioned this idea of some interval, some gap between there's a state before and then we're in intensity. And then what happens when we're in intensity? Here's what happens to me, at least what did happen for a while earlier in my experience. I would suddenly find myself in intensity. Now, maybe I loved it or maybe I hated it, but whatever it was, I don't think I was tracking how am I using this experience and doing something with it. I think it was happening to me versus me saying, I'm in this state. What do I want to learn from it? What do I want to get from it? What do I want to do with it? How do I want to use it? It's a very different way of being versus it's just happening to me. And what am I trying to get to? Perhaps I'm trying to get to another side, like come off of intensity, or maybe how long can I stay here? Can I keep this intense feeling up? Oh, I don't want it to drop. I don't want it to drop, and stay in it. And so I've been working a little bit more over time with how does one use that experience? That's some of the work I do with my clients.
How to harness and actually calibrate it.
How to harness it, calibrate it, learn from it, use it, because there's no question life is intense. And
Yes.
maybe not all of the time, but certainly every human being experiences intensity in their own way.
Exactly. It's basically energy, right? So, and rather than it controlling us, how do we become a master of that? So, bringing it to the practical level. So, obviously, you work with real big impact leaders, and also, of course, many things we learn from ourselves. What do you experience when this energy of intensity serves, and when does it get in the way? What's the difference? So, yeah.
You used a really important word there a moment ago, I think. You said control. Now, I don't know if you meant it like that, but you did say it. You said control. And yes, the idea, it would be phenomenal perhaps to be able to control it, but I don't know that we can. Me personally, my own makeup, if you will, I'd love to be able to control it. If I could control it, that would be like a special mechanism or feature I put on my control of intensity. I don't think I can really do that though. And I think playing with it over years, I've learned that. But I do think so. For me, what it is first is recognizing and becoming self-aware that, okay, wow, it's intense now. And you framed a moment or two ago, there could be really different types of intensity, right? I mentioned this idea, hey, we're in this conversation, I suddenly feel blood rushing through me. And so that's intense, right? For me, as I think about that, that might be a minor sense of intensity, right? Major intensity could be, I just got a call. There was something really big that happened. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, but whatever it is, I can feel emotions, my body, and my mind racing in many places. Oh my God, because of what I was just told. And what do I do with that? In that space, if I can first say, for even a fraction of a second, become aware, now I'm in intensity. This is an intense situation. How do I want to be in this? For me personally, I want to ground as much as I can. Now, I think it's somewhat ridiculous, for me anyway, to think about that I can suddenly be like, oh, I'm grounded in intensity. No way. That's just not me. In fact, if anything, it's like, firebolts are shooting out of my head or something. That's the electricity I might feel. And again, that could be positive or negative. When it's negative, when it might be acting out of fear, it's really hard because it's all flooding, right? But if I can even for a moment ground myself in the realization, this is feeling intense, what do I want to do next? How do I want to be? I think that's a powerful move to make.
Yes, it's bringing this intentionality and slowing down.
Yes.
And actually remembering self and the trust that you handled other situations before. That's what I call it like intrinsic trust in self, right?
Yes.
And with intentionality. And because when we are in this energy and everything is pulsating, and it can be passion for something, right? We really want this project done. We really want this deal to close. I remember feeling it so often on a trading floor, right? And it's exciting. All the hormones, adrenaline, rising dopamine. Oh my gosh, so addictive.
When wouldn't it go? When wouldn't it go well versus when would it go well for you, Tatiana?
The difference I think is because it's a powerful energy, right? The difference is, am I able to stay? Am I able to keep the blinkers open? Because what happens with this energy, it gets you into tunnel vision as well. And it could be both positive or negative, or somewhere in between, but it still gets one into tunnel vision. So, and it's how to stay actually a little bit like literally remembering this periphery feeling of vision, and that would allow to hear someone else as well, and also help one to detach from outcome. And of course, when I was in that moment on the trading floor, I couldn't think about that, like detached from outcome. What does it even mean, right?
Beautifully stated. I think you just captured what I tried to describe before. And the word that came up for me when I'm listening to you is focus, right? But bigger than that, it's attention. And that's what all of my work is about with others. What are we paying attention to? I think that is just so important. Some of that we control, some of it we don't control. But what we do control, where do we want to place our focus? Because where we place our focus is how we experience our lives. And I think with intensity, the stakes are lit up or they're higher, no matter what type of intensity it is. And where we can focus our attention, that's where we can, I don't know about control, but we can harness something from intensity.
Yes, and to make it practical, so what like people in real life, what can they do so they feel this rush? Like first of all, I would say it's recognizing the physical sensations, whether it's an increased heartbeat or some sense of excitement in the chest. It's I also say if everything feels urgent, it's probably your sign to slightly slow down.
I kind of think about it like being in a dream. And maybe sometimes you just need to pinch yourself. Why? Because you need to disrupt what's going on for even a fraction of a second. Think about it for a moment. So you're on the trading floor, you want a deal to go through, and you're there. You're almost about to get it done. And at the last moment, some curveball comes into the fray.
Mhm.
And it may throw the whole thing apart. I don't know about you, but for me personally, if that was me in that situation, I'd start to probably panic a bit. Inside for sure. I don't know what I'd show outside, but I would panic internally. Like, how do I keep this deal going? And that would be my sole focus in that moment. If I could pinch myself or do any of the things you mentioned, take a breath, step back, realize, become aware, widen my vision, whatever it might be. But that's why I say pinch yourself. It disrupts and say, okay, wait a minute, like I'm already writing the story that the deal is going to fall through because of this curveball. Well, if that's the reality I am living into right there, guess what? That's likely going to happen. I'm going to make that happen almost by the way I'm being in that moment. And a way by just disrupting that allows us choice, which gives us options to change that.
Exactly. So because we create our reality first in our head, right? So that's a very good point. And that's, of course, also important to know the default pattern, and probably our default pattern in such situation. And if I go back to trading flow, which would be slightly different from how I now, if I feel important deal is about to fall through, and I almost could feel this excitement and then, fall down. Actually, I will become a bulldozer. I in the past, I would become a bulldozer. And that's what made me also really, really successful, because I would be just like, oh, we're just going to find a way right now. So it's almost like no deal would not be even an option, right? Unless there is like a complete market collapse. But
And I
even
imagine that had served you many times. But I wonder if there was a situation or an example that you could recall where the bulldozing wasn't getting you or actually being helpful to getting it finished or completed or signed.
And I would say that sometimes what happens is, and that's exactly like this tunnel vision, right? So this bulldozing, what it leads, it might, even if it leads the deal being closed, what are the costs in the process? like what bridges might have been burned in the process that actually are not worth this transaction. Because, when we are so, and that's actually an exact explanation of what being detached from outcome is. Because if we are so focused on whether closing the deal or signing a contract, we are not even realizing that there might be something much bigger, which from that point of view looks like a failure, right? So it's
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I imagine the bulldozer on one level is a superpower for you, Tatiana. And I imagine many a time it served you well. But to your point, if you could disrupt to decide, do I need to use the usual technique, which is bulldozer, or is that not working, or do I need to change that in this particular situation? Again, that interval, that space, that gap, to realize that and to have the choice about which way you're going to go, I think is a powerful way of being.
exactly. And you know what? Sometimes I wonder now whether I lost this ability to be a bulldozer. And it's like that's the whole thing. It's about calibrating it. And I'm wondering, thinking of the leaders, you observed many leaders in the team situations, and sometimes, I think of sometimes we say, oh, this leader is really intense in both a positive and negative space, so meaning, the energy of the person is noticeable. I believe
Yes.
that intense people, they sometimes don't need to say much, even if they are kind of in their calm space, it's just the energy is noticed. So what differentiates the leader in kind of healthy version of intensity from when it goes miscalibrated from your point of view?
You make an interesting statement there. And for a moment, I was thinking about, I could see it both ways. I think you're right. Somebody who doesn't say much, but the intensity is there nonetheless. And I think of the polar opposite, which is somebody that's just spewing. There's just, it's coming out of them, and they could be equally intense. Again, could be positive or negative. I think the differentiator between leaders when they become intense is how they channel that energy. And what I mean by that is, again, whether they are in control of it or whether they are not aware of how it's coming out around them. And so I think, again, it comes back to that is a self-awareness thing and a self-management or regulation or practice thing,
Mhm,
aspects of emotional intelligence, which I think are really important in this, how they actually use it. But then what I think it comes down to, whether or not they have control over it, is how they then communicate it. We talked
mhm,
about the quiet leader who's still intense, but you can
mhm,
feel the energy that's coming from them because of that. Maybe because of their look, they're not saying anything, but their look,
mhm,
that's still communication. I think everything then comes down to communication and how they are choosing to translate that for
mhm,
whomever it is they are communicating with. And that
mhm,
could be an individual or tens of thousands of people on some telecast.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, so it's basically being aware of the impact our energy and our presence has on other people.
As you
You know?
said, making it very practical. Yes.
So yeah, it's just, and that awareness, because I remember knowing some people, they don't realize, some senior leaders, they don't realize they come across scary, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, and then they're surprised.
Yeah.
So that's and of course the whole thing is sometimes those types of leaders, it's difficult it's difficult for people to communicate that feedback to them because it's scary, right? So it's actually, do you have the mirror, like, so somebody who is holding y a mirror to you, and is able to give you this honest feedback. And that's what I believe where we come, David, because that's what we do to those senior leaders, right?
You raise a great point. In my experience, I think some leaders have done some work on like what it is that they look to channel in themselves, what they see in themselves. So some level of self-awareness for certain, but not all do. But then most leaders, I don't think, are consistently aware of how that impact translates across their day-to-day, their week-to-week, their strategy to strategy.
Yes, and so it's about increasing this impact so that the communication lands in a more effective way. Because I think it's also about being able to feel the boundaries. So for me, health intensity is a lot about recognizing the boundaries, and the boundary is something I struggled the most throughout my career, and that's what I help leaders with as well. Because sometimes you see in a team environment some really passionate leader who becomes like dog with a bone. That's actually, I remember on this podcast, Sarah Monroe used this expression. I was like, yeah, I love that. Exactly. It's like a dog with a bone, right?
Which means they won't let go of it. They're, dripping at the mouth, they're gnawing the bone, and they're holding on for dear life, whatever that means to them or whatever the bone ultimately represents. Yes. And probably not very aware of what that's doing to everybody around them. Because all they're focused on is the intensity of holding that bone. That's my bone. You're not having it. You're not getting it. This is mine. That's it.
Yeah. Or even if they believe it's a bond for the whole, like, kind of pack, right? There might be a bond just lying just around the corner and they're not noticing.
Yeah.
So
that's intensity, by the way, Tatiana, right? That's intensity for sure.
So yes. So recapping from our conversation, and I love it, by the way. So first of all, it's recognizing the space before you enter city of intensity, whether
Yes,
you
ma'am.
choose to go there yourself or whether it comes to you, right? You arrive
Yes.
by train or ship
Yeah.
of a plane.
What is happening in that gap right before? Because the point of recognizing and noticing that is it makes you that much more aware once you're in the situation itself. Otherwise, it just happens.
Yeah.
And you haven't captured that.
Oh my gosh, David, I'm thinking, can you sing us a line from that song?
That I think that'd be a different sort of setting, Tatiana. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate that, but it's not the right mic that I've got on right here.
Yeah, next time.
Next time for sure. In the club, Tatiana.
Oh wow, that would be great,
There you
and
go.
that's intense as well, right?
Oh yes, that certainly is.
Okay, and then of course it's finding out what impact does one's energy has on others, does one's presence has on others, and it's being able to ask for this feedback and create a space where others feel safe to give it to you.
Yes, you used the word, you said the intentionality that you go into it with, or what you want to do with it. And I added to that and said, where are we placing our focus? And thus, where are we using our capacity to be attending to, or our attention in that space? And then what do we want to communicate from that?
Exactly. And being able to detach from that bond, right? From the outcome.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much to our listeners for being with us. And David,
Thank you.
where can people find you?
They can find me by just doing an AI search if they'd like, or it's easy. It's at my name, David Yudis. It's YUDIS, davidyudis.com.
Wonderful. So fun. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Tatiana, thank you.